This is Mitch with the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. Today I'm going to do a solo cast on passive income. People throw around the word passive with not much regard. To truly be passive is a really it's a neat trick because it's hard to find truly passive stuff. A lot of people go, well, rent houses are passive. Yeah, rent houses are passive, my butt. They're not passive unless you're hiring someone to take care of all of it, and then they're taking all your income. So what's the point? A lot of the landlords out there wish that they could make 10 or 12%. So they go out there and they buy houses, and on paper they're supposed to make 15 or 18% ROI, or even just 12 or 10% ROI, return on their investment. But at the end of the day, the expenses eat them up. They don't make anything. It's a forced savings program, and you're waiting for appreciation to drive the value of the house up way beyond what you owe on the house. Or as you're paying the house down, the appreciation's going up. So a lot of people buy into being a landlord or buy into the buy and hold strategy, thinking that they're going to make 10% or 12% or better. And it usually doesn't turn out that way at all. I speak from experience. I had 25 rent houses. They were killing me, and I wasn't making a dime. I could have been the worst landlord in the world, or it's just not a great process. Because when you're a landlord, you're responsible for everything from the back fence to the front mailbox and everything in between. Every window, every doorknob, every garage door, every sprinkler head, shower head, hot water heater, stove, oven, refrigerator, AC, especially if you live in a hot place like Texas. Anyways, we want to talk about being really, really passive. How you do that is you loan your money out. So there's a lot of people that should be into this and aren't, and it's because the institutions and the banks and the money, the power brokers, the money financial advisors, they're not telling you that you could easily loan out your money yourself and make, way bigger rates of return. And in a way, you can't say guaranteed because that's not right, but very secure loans, depending on what your collateral is. So what happens when you loan your money? You loan your money out, and if you're just doing it on a handshake and hoping you get paid back, really bad deal. The chances of those things working out are not really good. You need a collateral-based loan, which means you're going to loan your money and you're going to get a lien position, hopefully a first lien position, on a piece of something that's valuable that you can collect on or take from if you don't get paid. So a collateral-based loan is the best. I personally like real estate. Why? Well, you can loan on a car, but cars can drive away to God knows where. Cars can get wrecked into trees and bridges. Cars can be abused and have the engines blow up, and they're not worth much. Cars are depreciating asset. Okay, a depreciating asset worth less and less and less every year. These are all the reasons why I prefer to borrow on real estate. Real estate is tangible. It's not going anywhere physically, and it's not going anywhere trend-wise. Everyone needs real estate or a place to live or a place to run their business out of. So I don't think real estate's going out of style anytime soon. They're not making any more of it. So there's only so much dirt and earth on this planet, and they're not making any more of it. And then there's always that need to live and prosper. I mean, almost everybody has a tie to some piece of real estate, be it their home or their business or the place they rent. I mean, it's hard to survive on this planet without occupying a piece of real estate. I like the tangible aspect of it because when I loan on real estate, it's can be documented and I can get a lien on it. And if I don't get paid as agreed, I can get that piece of real estate as to make me whole, to make up for the fact that I didn't get paid the way I was promised on paper. Now, all this has to be documented, but the biggest thing about loaning against real estate is you have to have an advantageous LTV, or loan to value, that is advantageous to you, the lender. Like if a house is worth $200,000 or $250,000, let's say 200 for easy math. House is worth 200,000. If you loan $250,000 on this house and it's only worth 200,000, this is probably not a good deal. As a matter of fact, it's not a good deal. Because if you don't get paid as agreed, whatever that agreement is, you're supposed to get paid every month, and you're supposed to get X amount interest, annual interest rate, and this is what you're supposed to collect every month, you know, for X amount of years. And if you don't get paid as agreed, you get that house instead of payments. You get to foreclose on the house, or if the person who borrowed the money from you has got any ethics at all, if they can't pay you and it starts getting out of hand, then they need to walk the deed over to you and deed the property to you as agreed. Because when you do a collateral only loan, then you have the right to get paid as agreed, or you need to be given that property to make up for the fact that you didn't get paid as agreed, to make up for the default on the payments. So, you know, this works best. You know, not everybody's going to just walk over and hand you the deed because they're honest and come to the conclusion that they can't pay. Most borrowers I know will think, well, I'm going to hit it big here in a little bit if you'll just hold off, if you'll just hold off, if you'll just hold off. And, you know, 8 or 9 or 10 or a year later, they still haven't hit it big. They still haven't made enough to pay you. And in fact, they're behind more and more and more. The late charges, the interest charges, the payments, everything's just getting out of hand. And the past due taxes and the past due insurance on the property is all mounting up on your side as the lender if you don't get paid. So we want to have a first lien position so that we can foreclose quickly, and we want to be in a state that's probably non-judicial, which means you don't have to go in front of a judge necessarily to foreclose. You just send your certified letters and notices, and either you get made whole or you don't. Now, there's always the possibility that your borrower hires an attorney or files bankruptcy and then strings things out a little bit. But this is why it's super important to have a good spread when you start figuring out the loan to value, or the LTV. Now, let's say you take that same $200,000 house and you loan $75,000 in the first lien position. It's worth $200,000 and you're only loaning $75,000. It's worth $200,000, you're only loaning $75,000, you have a first lien, and if they don't pay you back that $75,000 as agreed, then you get a $200,000 house to make up for that default. Now you're talking. So, you know, make sure you're in the right state. Make sure you've chosen a state where if you have to foreclose on your lender, it's a reasonably short period of time. And, you know, there's Texas and Georgia probably have, and maybe Mississippi, have the fastest foreclosure processes in the planet. I know Texas and Georgia, their foreclosure process and real estate lien law mimic each other. We like to say in Texas that Georgia just copied us because why invent the wheel? But if you're in Georgia, they'll tell you that Texas copied them because why invent the wheel? Reinvent the wheel. So we run about 45 days. If you're Johnny on the spot, hit the timing just right and don't miss a 21-day notice. You know, you have to give notice 21 days. There's rules. And if you miss that window, you got to wait a whole nother month so you can get that 21-day, meet that 21-day requirement. So typically in Texas and Georgia, it's going to take about 60 to 90 days, just depending on the timing of how things fall. 60 to 90 days to take someone's property away from them because they didn't pay you is a reasonable length of time. I've been doing it for over 2 decades, and it's painful, but usually by the time I get the property back, I have such good LTV, loan to value, that when I do resell that property to someone, whether I sell it on payments or I sell it outright, I'm going to get made whole plus, 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 plus. In fact, you want to set up your loans so that the worst thing that can happen to you return-wise is that you get paid on time. Let's say, like, if you get paid on time, you're going to make 10% on your money. But if you get that $200,000 house back because they didn't pay you on time for that $75,000 loan, now you're going to make some real money, some big money. So that's how you want your loans to be. It's like, you pay me, I'm really happy. You don't pay me, I'm ecstatic. I'm ecstatic. Now, there's going to be a little pain and a little dry spell there for a minute, 60, 70, 80, 90 days. Even if it had to go 6 months or a year because they filed a bankruptcy. Still, when that process is over, you're going to get healed up very well. So the key to super passive income is to understand that most things that you're going to invest in are not that passive if you really have control of them. Loaning money in the stock market is very passive. You have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, and you have no way to stop whatever it is that's going to happen. You can't defend yourself against the stock market hardly. Now, I understand you can buy puts and pushes, and I not even know all the lingo, but I know you can hedge your bets certain ways, but really, there's not a lot to do. Loaning money is much simpler. I either get paid or I get that piece of collateral right over there. Now, the key is make sure that piece of collateral is worth the pain and the effort you're going to have to go through if the person doesn't pay you as agreed. Your borrower doesn't pay you as agreed. Just make sure that piece of property just suits you just fine. Who's loaning their money out? So I have lots of private lenders. My whole business functions off of private lenders for the most part. I am very bankable. I have millions of dollars worth of bank loans. And there's a time and a place for a bank who will loan me money at a much lower interest rate than my private lenders loan me money for. Okay? But there's a place and time for the private lender, and there's a place and time for the banks. Private lenders work best to start the ball rolling, to buy that rickety house that's all dilapidated and leaning and not right for a song. We're going to buy this property for a song, but a private lender is the person to borrow that money from. Trying to get a bank to loan you money on what that house could be and what it will look like in 60 days is not very fast. We need quickness when we're in the real estate investing arena. We need to be quick. It's very hard to steal houses in slow motion. And I use the word steal very loosely. The point is, most deals that sell at major discounts have a lot of back pressure on them. There's some clock ticking, and when that clock ticks its final minute or second off, then the person that owns the property is going to get zero. They're just going to lose it, and they're going to get absolutely nothing for it. And the closer that timeline gets to the deadline, the more apt the seller is to sell at a major discount. And that's where private lenders come in. And think of yourself as, just close your eyes and think of yourself. If you were to loan money, imagine someone like Mitch Stephen calling you and go, look, I got 4 days before this foreclosure and I need X amount of dollars for this property. First questions out of your mouth ought to be, what is the property worth? So you can figure out what your LTV is, your loan to value. You're loaning X, and the property is worth Y. How much is Y? You know, and if there's a good enough spread, what's a good enough spread? I don't ever let my lenders into a deal over 65% of whatever I'm going to sell this property for. Okay? And I have formulas on what these properties are worth. They're based on the rents. I back into the rents and we figure out exactly what I can owner finance this property for. And then I never borrow more than 65% of this number up here. That's the end all sales price, the market sales price. And I say market, I mean market for owner financed houses. And I average only borrowing 58%. So if I'm going to owner finance a house to my buyer at $100,000, I average borrowing $58,000 from a private person and giving them a first lien. So imagine what that looks like from my lender's point of view, from my private lender's point of view. He's loaning $58,000 on average. At the most, he would loan $65,000 on a property that's worth $100,000. That's a pretty calculated and low risk. It'd be pretty difficult not to be made whole. I mean, think about it. Even if you loan at 65% or $65,000 on a $100,000 property, property values would have to drop 35% before the property was worth exactly what you loaned on it. You haven't even got a loss yet, okay? So think about that. So who are the people that are loaning money to people like Mitch Stephen? A lot of the people that loan me money were really enthusiastic about the idea of being a house flipper or being a real estate investor. And then they quickly learned after a deal or two that it's a major endeavor. It's become a science, finding the houses, selling the houses. You have a lot of competition out there, and it's a science, and you have to really get into it to be competitive and to make money. And you have to know your business. You have to become an expert, or you have to have an expert on your side, and you have to take the deep dive into this stuff. A lot of the people that loan me money went in wanting to be the investor, figured out that this is work, and decided it was more work than they wanted to do. And then they decided to loan out their money at that point. A lot of them were landlords that thought they were going to make 10, 12, 14% rate of return buying this house and renting it out, only to figure out that they lost money at the end of the year. They didn't even make zero, they made negative. And so, because same thing, being a landlord, you got to know your game, and you have to know who you're up against and who's in your house, because some of these people will tear your house to the ground and walk out. They know more about the law than you'll know because they've been through it 100 times. You have to know about screening. You have to know about income calculation, how to verify jobs and background and criminal history and all this stuff. And then make an assessment whether you want to take a chance on this person that's going to go in your house. And again, it's a science. So a lot of ex-landlords loan to me. A lot of landlords that were very successful loan to me because they have all these properties. They go and they sell them all, and they got this big amount of money in the bank. And then they're used to cash flow instead of, and they understand that they don't want to spend their principal, because principal, eventually, if you keep spending your principal or your retirement money, is eventually going to disappear. You know, it keeps getting lower and lower and lower and lower, and then you look up one day and you just don't have much of that left. So they want to invest it and live off the interest income or the return on their money and keep that money the same or bigger every year. I have a theory: if your money's not growing, it's losing. There is no break even. There is no standstill where I'm at. Your money's either making money or your money's losing money, but there is no neutral. You know, if you think there's a neutral, just you know, people think I can just go to sleep, I'll be in neutral, well, you're still breathing. As long as you're breathing, you're going to need to replace some energy somewhere, sometime. And, there is no neutral. We're either getting ahead or falling behind. The other kind of people that loan me money are retired people who want to stay retired. Retired people that do not want to have a minimal friction lifestyle. Minimal friction. They just want to play golf. They want to travel with their wife. They got some people handling their books and writing their checks, or everything's automatic withdrawal. They just want money in and money out, and it all systematized and ready to go. They don't want a job. They've already had a job. They earned their freedom. They have enough retirement money that they don't need to work, and they're not going to work anymore. The other kind of people that loan me money are professionals. Doctors, lawyers, people like professional athletes that just do so well financially at what they do that it doesn't pay them to get their focus broken into fragments, or to take their eye off the ball, to quote an athletic term. It doesn't pay for them to do anything but what they do. They make really outstanding money. And then it's so exhausting or so intensive on them that when they do have some time, the last thing they want to do is get into another business that they have to learn and watch over and take the rest of their time. They need their spare time to recoup and to enjoy their life and to enjoy their money. Those are the people. I have 36 people in my life right now, and this is May of 2020. I have about 36 people who have out on the street right now through me. They've loaned me about 24 million bucks. This didn't happen overnight. Most of these people have been with me for over a decade. A lot of them over a decade and a half. A few of them over 2 decades, they have been loaning me money. Now, there'd be a whole bunch of them over 2 decades, but a lot of them have died. And, unfortunately, that's how I lose my private lenders, is they pass away. And then, it goes into the estate, and the kids get the estate. And, of course, the kids need a new boat and a new car, and they're not interested at all in keeping those savings plans going. So usually when someone passes away, that's the end of it. I take care of a lot of widows. I started doing business with the man of the family, and then 15, 20 years later, the man passes away, and his widow decides, why should I fix something that's been running well and never broken for over 2 decades or for over a decade and a half? Let's just stay where we're at, and it's enough money for them to or for the widow to live off of. So I take care of a lot of widows these days because my career is over 24 years long. Couple of hiatuses in there where I took a break and took some sabbaticals, but for the most part, I've always been in the business for over 24 years. Even when I wasn't in the business, I had lots of real estate that I had to watch over. So CEOs, pro athletes, doctors, lawyers, people that's at the top of their game, making big money, those are the kind of people that have been lending me money. Also, people that are not business people, but they inherited a lot of money, or they won the lottery, or they had some kind of windfall, and they just don't trust themselves with the money. They've never really been successful financially on their own. They have this windfall, and they want to get it out of their hands and into a professional's hands so that they have a better chance of not losing it, to put it lightly. And so I have seen that many times. People have a windfall. When people have windfalls, I say, do this, say like, you get $1 million windfall, and I'm just pulling that number right out of the air. Go ahead and spend 15, 20, 30, I don't know, maybe $100,000. I wouldn't go much over 10%. Take 10% of your windfall and blow it out. Go rent those jet skis or buy those jet skis. Go on that vacation. Buy the car. Do do a lot of things that you've seen everyone else doing that you've never been able to afford to do, and do some of it. I call it pent-up demand. Take some of that pent-up demand and get it out of your system, and then live off what the $900,000 makes. You know, if you have $900,000 at 10% annual interest, that's an annual income that you never had before, and you've survived all this time without it. Now you're going to have this annual income of, you know, $90,000 or something coming in extra per year. Save it, grow, take a little bit of it and add to your lifestyle, but also take some of it and just keep letting that number get bigger and bigger and bigger, your retirement plan. I'll also borrow a lot of money from people who are sick and tired of 2% or less CD rates. And they finally figured out that, you know, inflation is 3% per year. This income is not even keeping up with inflation. So, you know, their money's making less and less compared to what they need to buy every year. I'm also there for people who are sick and tired of living by the Wall Street ticker tape. I have a lot of people that have pulled out of the stock market saying, I would rather take this more predictable income and this reliable collateral than gamble on hitting it a little bit bigger in the stock market. Here's the thing. When you know what you're going to make every month, you can plan. Now we talk to a lot of people in the stock market. Man, I'm averaging 17% rate of return or 15% rate of return for the last 3 years. It's only that rate of return if you take your money out and sell. Until you sell, it's just what you could make if you sold. And then a lot of people hang on too long, and then there's a crash, and it takes them 7, 8, 9, 10 years to get back to where they were. That's like 10 years of not making any money, just trying to get back to what you could have made, especially psychologically. Most people I know agree, if you could just make 8, 10% steady on your money all the way, never lose, and just keep compounding that 8 and 10% per year, that they would have been much better off than they ever were in the stock market. You know, as a general rule, I hear that all the time. So loaning out your money directly is another option that people try. Still, when you loan out your money directly to private lenders in your town, like, you know, not anyone specific, just whoever has a good deal, come to me and I'll loan you the money if I like it. You're going to need to know your laws. You're going to need to know your real estate values. You're going to need to know your paperwork. You're going to need to know your software and your bookkeeping. You're going to have to know your collection process, and you're going to have to know some attorneys, and you're going to have to know some appraisers, and you're going to have to know what you're doing. You have to get into it. And all of a sudden, loaning the money out yourself at a premium rate isn't passive anymore. So I'm talking to people that want to really be passive, right? Passive. Just go to your mailbox on the 1st and pick up a check and put it in the bank, and then go about your golf game or your boating weekend or your trip to Europe or China or wherever we're going. I guess we're going anywhere right now, but so here's the proposition. You can loan your money to a real pro. And I want to put my hat in the ring. You know, I'm a pro. I've been in the business over 2 decades. I have 20 years worth of being in this business. I have started in 1996, officially full-time, March of 1996. But I have owned property since I was 21, like from the 80s. I have had a rent house or two or something going on. I wasn't in it big until 1996, but I was always in it from age 21 when I bought my first condo by myself in Learned why condos weren't a good deal the hard way. A little word called special assessments and recessions. So you can loan your money to a person like me. For the record, I've never filed bankruptcy ever. I've never filed Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. I've never been foreclosed on, and I've never deeded back a property to one of my private lenders. I've never failed anyone. Have I had any deals go south? Yeah, I've had a handful of deals go south. Not many, knock on wood. But the ones that did go south wasn't my private lender's problem. I took care of it, handled it, took my loss like a man, took it on the chin, never said a word about it, and paid as agreed. Some people have loaned me money wishing I would fail because sometimes I only borrow 40 cents, 40% of what the property's worth, or sometimes I only borrow 25% of what the property's worth. Those people really wish that I would default, but I don't default, and I have never defaulted. Not to say that it couldn't happen, but that's why you got to look at the collateral. You have to say, if Mitch Stephen, even though he has a great track record, if he defaults, what do I get? And you got to look at your collateral and say, because I'll have two rights. With all my 36 lenders and all that 24 million, I have two rights every day of my life. I have the right to pay as agreed, or I have the right to deed the property back to the person who loaned me the money if I can't pay or don't want to pay. I have those two rights every day. It's a non-recourse, collateral-only loan. And so if you don't like the collateral, I always look at my potential lenders and say, if you don't like the collateral, don't do the deal, because I always have that right. Now, have I ever given a property back or deeded back? No, I haven't, not ever. In 2000, somewhere around 2,000 deals, 100 deals a year, over 2 decades worth of deals. No, I haven't ever given a property back. Even when I lost money, I didn't give the property back to the lender, because if I give properties back to my lenders, even though it might be a great deal for them financially, that's not what they loaned me the money for. They loaned me the money because they want to be passive. They want to get a check in the mail every month. They just want to make their deposit and go about their life. I know that if I start giving houses back to people, they'll stop loaning me their money. And their money is like my lifeblood in my business. It's the reason why I do well in a recession. And because in the recession, the banks close, right? I clean up in the recession. I do extremely well in a recession. The house business, buying and then selling with seller financing or owner financing, selling your house with that built-in loan from me to my buyer, that's a boom time in a recession, because the banks are closing, and I don't need a bank. When I have private lenders, I don't need a bank to buy houses, and my buyer doesn't need a bank to buy a house from me, because I'm making the loan to him, me. So I don't need a bank on either end in my business. When there's a recession and the banks close, I'm the only guy open for business. I didn't need them to buy my houses because I have you, the private lenders, and I don't need a bank or a mortgage company to sell my houses, because we're not going out putting applications for loans. I'm giving the loan on the house. You just make me 30 years worth of payments. So what do I offer as a rate of return? Really quickly, it's pretty easy. You give me a 15-year fully amortized loan, a 15-year loan, I pay 10%. You give me a 10-year fully amortized loan, I'll pay 9%. I'll pay you out over 10 years. You give me a 15-year amortization with a 7-year balloon or a 7-year call, where it's a 15-year amortization, but at the end of 7 years, I got to pay you whatever the balance is on that 15-year note. I got to pay you off. I'll pay you 8.5%. You give me a 15-year amortization with a 5-year balloon, I'll pay you 8%. And then anything that fully amortized 7 years or less, I pay 6%. So if I got something, and I do occasionally come across properties and say, look, I just want to put this on a 6-year amortization or a 5-year amortization. I just want to pay it off. I'm going to, I just want that property free and clear in a short period of time. If I do that, anything 7 years or less, I'll pay 6%. And here's what's neat about that deal. You know, the property might be worth 50 and I'm borrowing 20,000 in a first lien position, but I just want to pay it off in 7 years. I mean, every month that goes by, you're owed less and less and less. And I didn't hardly borrow any money against this collateral in the first place. So it's very strong. You know, rate of return is usually based on risk. You know, the higher the risk, the higher the return. So if you see people offering you 25% rate of return or 20% rate of return, there's probably a lot more risk associated with this. I do not pool my money. Everyone who loans me money, it's me or my company as the borrower, you as the lender, and a piece of collateral that you get if this particular loan doesn't get paid as agreed. Okay? One borrower, one lender, usually one piece of collateral, although there could be multiple pieces of collateral, but usually we only need one to satisfy that. Never borrow over 60%, so you never loan over 65%, average 58%. You always a first lien position. So those are the kinds of loans that I make. Those are the rates that I pay. And I would love to have a private consultation with you if you are even remotely interested in loaning your money out and having a truly passive source of income. If that sounds appealing to you, or you just like to meet or talk, we can talk over the phone. We can set up a Zoom meeting if you like to see each other when we talk, or you can come to San Antonio, or maybe I travel to you. Just depends. If you're living someplace interesting, I'd like to go. Right now, we're not traveling all that much because of the pandemic, but this recording will be archived for months and months and months. So hopefully this stuff will pass soon. Call me, 210-669-4020. 210-669-4020. That is my direct cell phone number, and I'm going to be the guy that answers it 99.999% of the time. So give me a call, 210-669-4020. My email is mitch@1000houses.com. mitch@1000houses.com. And if you ever want to learn about me and my story, I wrote a book called My Life in 1,000 Houses, Failing Forward to Financial Freedom. It will give you a lot of insight as to how I became an expert in this business. And it had a lot to do with falling down and getting back up and dusting yourself off. So again, if you're really interested in the passive rate of return, minimal risk with great collateral, and something tangible that you're either going to get paid as agreed, or get a tangible, very valuable piece of Texas real estate, then give me a call. Mitch Stephen, I'll be happy to talk to you. Love to meet you in person if you're in San Antonio or near Canyon Lake, Texas, or New Braunfels. We can meet up somewhere. I'm not even opposed to travel if you're really serious, especially if you live in an interesting place. All right, this is Mitch Stephen with the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. I'd like to thank everyone stopping by to get you some insight as to how to really passively invest. And hope you're meeting your goals this year. Hang in there through this pandemic. It's gonna pass. We're the United States of America. We will get it done. All right, I'm out of here.